What do you think about the summaries from both parties?
I think the government did an excellent job. It was boring as all hell. It was boring, boring as all heck.
Yeah.
It was like a really bad college class. But I think the government did a really good job of going through their PowerPoint and putting up the law and then putting up the names and the specific examples. Because even as an attorney, there were certain stories and fact situations where I was like, okay, where does this flow into things? For example, with Mia and the fact that she was being called by D-Rock after the fact. So they did a good job of pulling that together. And then what I saw with the what I saw with the defense was that the defense definitely threw it all that they could against the wall. They were not afraid to violate ethical rules. That happened multiple times. There were some really out of bounds things.
And when you say ethical rules, what do you mean by ethical rules?
So, for example, you cannot make the allegation that the government is crooked. Just like they couldn't make an allegation that Diddy is crooked aside from the crimes. So they frequently allege that the government was targeting Diddy. You can't do that. In fact, the judge admonished them for that. But the problem was Mark, the defense attorney, had got the other side, the government, to agree that there would be no objections while each side is giving their closing. So they had to wait until after the jury left. At that point, it's too late. There was also a second one that was very substantial. And that was, he said, well, if this is a conspiracy, why didn't the government charge any co-conspirators? Why is there only Diddy? You can't do that. That's a total violation because, number one, that may not be true. But they know that the government can't say, well, we have sealed indictments for other people. And so it really put the government at a disadvantage because, as well, they weren't even able to correct it with the jury today. Monday will be the first chance to do so. But at that point, it's been heard, right?
And even if the judge admonishes them from taking that into consideration, we're human and we're going to remember those small things.
You can't unring that bell. And more importantly, people forget, with defendants, if he's found not guilty, there's no appeal. There's nothing the government can do. He just goes on for the rest of his life. So that's how come Mark and the other attorneys were willing to, hey, I'll break the rule if it means he'll be found innocent, and then he'll get paid, and then he'll move on.
Yes. What do you think jurors are thinking about right now?
Well, some of them look like they were thinking about sleeping, okay, going back to sleep. So, but what I really think with the jurors are, the challenge is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if there's just a juror there that just says, no, I don't want him to go to jail for this. I do think the government targeted him. I do think the government is trying to take a black man down. So there was one woman that's in the kind of towards the middle in the jury. And Mark, when he was giving his closing, he pretty much talked to her the whole time. And she would engage with him, she'd laugh at him, she'd talk with him. So she appears to be very much on Diddy's side. And the thing is, if you get someone who says, I will not follow the rules, there's nothing that can be done.
And most people, many Americans do not know about the political process,
Right.
the jury process. They believe that they're just going to go in there and make, based on the facts. That is far from what happens oftentimes. So how do you make sure that jurors go in and only make decisions based on the facts and not how they feel?
So the challenge, that's why during voir dire, or however you want to, I say voir dire, you ask very specific questions because the whole goal is to pre-screen and try and get out those people who are not going to follow the rules and are going to do what they want to do. That's actually why the judge got rid of juror number 6. He said, look, if you can't answer a simple question like, where do you live, then you can't follow the rules that are going to be the complicated 30-page jury instructions.
So I know you're a lawyer and not a fortune teller. Right. What do you think will happen?
I think that he'll likely receive a guilty for at least one of the prostitution charges, or it could be the underlying predicate offense of prostitution across state lines. I think it could be hung on the trafficking. I definitely see that if he's not found guilty of trafficking Cassie, ain't no way he's going to be found guilty of trafficking Jane, because no. And I do think the RICO has been proven. The RICO has been proven.
Why do you say the RICO has been proven?
Oh, okay, so the enterprise, it's very clear there's an enterprise. Yeah. It's very clear that there's an enterprise. The enterprise, it doesn't have to be bad boy. In closing, the government did a good job of saying it's just a group of people with a common goal. Here, that common goal was to satisfy Diddy's desires, wishes, grow his brand, keep him in power. That was done pretty clearly. But with RICO, you only needed 2 offenses to take place, right, within 10 years of each other. They proved that with bribery, the bribery from the hotel with the $100,000. They've proved that as well with the prostitution across state lines, right? There's buku, all those male hookers. They also proved it with the distribution of substances. There's no minimum amount of substances. And the court defined the substances as simply sharing it with your friends.
So with those broad definitions and specific those ways that they explain
Right.
that it's very easy to convict.
Yeah, I believe so, because it could be two of the same thing. So they could decide, hey, two of the instances where the hookers went across state lines, they were flown into town for a freak off, whether it was to Turks or anywhere else, that would be sufficient.
So we know you just gave us your thoughts on what the jury is thinking. What do you think Diddy is thinking right now?
Oh, he's got the bubble guts, and it's not because of the menu. Oh, yeah. He's nervous, but I think he's confident.
Yeah.
He feels like his team did everything that they could, including not follow the rules, and I would agree.
So we know that the defense is not required to present anything because the burden of proof is on the prosecution. Do you think that was a good decision?
I think it was a brilliant decision. There's no way Diddy would get up there and convince anyone that wasn't already convinced. In addition, Diddy is really bad, they say, on cross-examination. He's egotistical, and he thinks he's a super charmer. So I don't think he would have done well. More than that, it opens him up to cross-examination. Mm-hmm. All sorts of things could be opened that were not previously able to be discussed in court would then be discussed. So I think that was wise of him, because you don't want to end up like in Tory Lanez. Tory called only one witness, and that was the witness that put the weapon in his hands. And that was problematic according to the jurors polled afterwards. So here, you don't want to put a witness on the stand as on the defense that's going to do more harm than good.
I know earlier you mentioned that this is sort of like the trial of the 21st century, a cultural trial. What do you think we'll leave from this trial thinking and believing about the state of Hollywood, the state of celebrity, the state of abuse?
Depends on the result. If he walks, he is Teflon Sean. There will be people will feel like he's untouchable. And I think that, oh gosh, I can only imagine the types of things he could get away with in the future. And I think then in turn, there'll be a lot of victims who will look at all that Cassie went through and say, why come out and tell my story? If they're going against a rich, powerful man.
One word to summarize this case over the 7 weeks for you.
Life-changing.
I love that.
Iconic.
Iconic?
Iconic.
Tell me why.
Iconic because it's going to set the stage on either side, for the defense or for victims or for men who feel like this Me Too movement has become a Me Too shakedown. Because there are going to be some men who are going to look at, if he's exonerated, if he's found not guilty, they're going to be like, yes, this is justice for men. And then there will be women who feel represented by Cassie and say, yes, this will be justice for us.
And whatever happens, you'll be there to explain it to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Brandon, that was excellent. I got some for her too. Thank